Are the Dallas Cowboys taking stuff off the plate of Dak Prescott? All that and more this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat over 50 infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That is JASE medical.com. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. We are answering your Twitter questions today, so let's jump right into it. We got a really good one right here from Ahmed. He wants to know, Jerry Jones said that Dak Prescott's pre-snap responsibilities are being reduced in this new offense, Landon, and that the offensive line is making more calls. We always hear that Dak is one of the best pre-snap quarterbacks in the league. So why are they taking away one of his strengths?
I think that this is something that it's a little bit difficult to parse because we don't obviously get the full list of responsibilities that happen pre-snap. But I think that this is actually more of a return to the situation that the Cowboys had when Travis Frederick was the center, right? And again, like, there are a lot of calls to be made pre-snap. There are, the line calls, which, you're adjusting the blocking scheme based on who the identified Mike is on the defensive side of the ball. They also have other certain calls that they make based on alignment of the defense and based on, certain tags that happen for each play. So it's not even just like overall calls that get made, across the board, no matter what happens. If situation A happens, it's also play specific tags and calls that happen to, that the coaches will identify as coaching points in the play when they're installing the play during training camp. So it's a lot to call. And so having Biadasz kind of take some of at least the line call stuff back, I think is good for Dak to be able to not have to worry about making sure that part is correct and actually get to focus on making sure that the Cowboys are in the correct play, which is the most important thing, right? Is the most important pre-snap aspect that Dak has control over is making sure that you're in the correct play. If you're in a run play, you see a stacked box, especially on the side that you're supposed to be running to, flip the play call or call audible into a pass play. Those are the kind of things that we need Dak to focus on, where he thinks the overall defense is, as opposed to making the required agreed upon calls that the offensive line has to do in order to properly coordinate how blocking schemes are supposed to work, depending on exactly what the alignment of the defense is.
It also just allows them to play a lot faster. And we saw this against the Giants. Like, when they got into their offense, they could play with more pace because Dak's now not having to try to figure out everything and line receivers up, which is also another benefit of having a more veteran team, is people know where to be, right? Yep. Now Dak can, get the play in, call it, and then go. And again, we saw this in the Giants game already. They were now snapping the ball, with 24 seconds left in the play clock, rather than what we've seen over the last couple of years, where you're getting right down to the last second, and it's just easier for defenders to time a snap when they know the snap is coming right now. You can keep teams off balance, and I'm going to keep pointing back to what McCarthy did with Aaron Rodgers. You can catch defenses either with too many guys on the field, or you can catch defenses with the wrong, play call, or not ready to go. And there's just so many advantages for if you have an offensive line that has the ability to help your quarterback make some of these calls.
If you get the calls in early, if you have both guys working at the same time, it's like having two separate processors, right? You got a guy that's up there who's already doing his job for the line assignment, so Dak can skip that because he can hear the call being made from Tyler Biadasz, and now Dak can make get to his part of the process in the pre-snap. Here's the other thing too. You mentioned the speed, which I think is a huge element, not only for just generally playing faster, but also in a situation, we live in an NFL world where post-snap rotation, post-snap looks on defensive side of the ball it's adjusting from where you are pre-snap. So I think it's more advantageous nowadays to get lined up, get your calls made early in the play call, and then have some time to see how the defense is lingering around a little bit. Get your cadence in. That's the other key thing that they've really focused on, is giving Dak the opportunity to get out there and use some cadence to try to create some offsides penalties. But beyond that too, much like motion has an advantage of creating angles, that sort of thing, there's an identifying aspect of having a lot of time on the play call. If you're able to use your cadence to fool the defense, maybe not just to jump off sides, but also to reveal what their post-snap rotation is supposed to be, that's invaluable because they can't get out of it at that point, right? It's hard to audible out of a post-snap rotational defense. So once you've identified it, once you've actually got them to expose it, now you can really learn how to take advantage and exploit them. And it's, again, in this world that we're living in, this post cover to safety rotation world, any advantage you can get to get a peek at what they're going to do post snap is incredibly useful for a quarterback.
And just to be clear, they're not really taking anything off Dak Prescott's plate. They're just shifting the responsibilities around. Dak is still processing a million different things before the snap. It's not like they're just saying, hey, don't worry about anything, just go out there and play. It's just
it's not like his opinion is actually beneficial here. This is a identification situation, right? And so it's not like, oh, Dak would they would all, the point is that they would all identify it the same
way. Hopefully
it's just getting hopefully, right? It's getting through that process quicker by having Biadasz take that part of it so that Dak can focus on the latter part of the pre-snap process earlier.
And that, again, that doesn't mean that Dak doesn't have the option to change a protection if he sees something he doesn't like, right? I mean, he still has that ability, but I think the hope is that Biadasz, and I think Zach Martin helps out a little bit here as well, can help you line things up and get into stuff quicker so Dak can focus on other things such as the coverages, making sure that the receivers are running the right routes, or if he needs to change the route combination, he can do that. It's just allowing Dak in the whole offense just to play a lot faster.
Yep, and get the play in and get the snap off quicker.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some more questions, Landon, because we've got some really, really good ones, including what will the Cowboys do with Jourdan Lewis now that he's healthy? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or you're scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you the players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us in this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. It's Mike Williams for the Los Angeles Chargers. We know a little bit about the Chargers with Kellen Moore running that offense. If you're looking for a sweet matchup to exploit for a big game at wide receiver in week 2, turn to Chargers wide receiver Mike Williams. Williams was pretty quiet in week 1. He got a little bit banged up in this run-heavy opener against Miami, but he draws a beautiful matchup against a Tennessee Titans secondary that struggled to handle any of the Saints receivers downfield, including Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Look for Justin Herbert to hit on at least one big scoring play to Williams. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows that a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. The same is true for your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Every dayers. Tomorrow, we've got a crossover with Locked On Jets. I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's some stuff going on with the Jets. We will dive into all of that, what we expect in week 2. So make sure you tune in. Landon, our next question comes from Evan. He wants to know, you guys may have touched on this already. We haven't actually. How do you fit Jourdan Lewis into this defense if the guys on the field stay healthy?
This is tough. And honestly, I kind of, not to go back to this a little bit, but I have to say, and we haven't really had a chance to talk about this because there's been so many other things going on, right? The decision to make Jourdan Lewis a healthy scratch week 1 really makes me call into question the idea of why they didn't put him on PUP. I just you're already 1 week closer to him missing it. I don't know if the plan is to make him active for this week, but you've already got another 2 guys who you were hoping that are coming off the injury list that you're going to have to, make active.
Unless the plan is to eventually move one of these guys. And you're not trading Trayvon Diggs. You're not trading Stephon Gilmore. And you're definitely not trading a rookie Jourdan Bland, which leads me to a certain corner that you could trade. I just wonder how hard it would have been to trade Jourdan Lewis if he was on PUP the first 4 weeks of the season. The Cowboys have a game in week 5 and then I think a bye in week 6. So you would have at most got to see him 1 game before a potential trade deadline move.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it seems very convoluted at this point. To especially when keeping Isaiah Land was a very simple way of doing this and pumping Jourdan Lewis. I don't know. I think the answer to the question is, how do you get Jourdan Lewis onto the field? The answer is that you just put him on the field. That's the way the defense works, is that they're rotating all these guys in. You're going to have to figure out the game day actives and inactives.
Yeah, but who do you take off the field? I think that's the question Evan wants to know. Like, at this point, can you justify taking Jourdan Bland off the field for any reason?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you can, because I think you can justify. You have to ask yourself the same question about Marquise Bell and Wanye Thomas. And you know what I'm saying? Like, that is just part of the the give and take with having a really talented deep defense. But
you don't do that at corner, though. I think that's typically your corners play almost every snap.
I think the difference here is that Jourdan Lewis is very much an assignment corner. That's not a good way to put it, but he's a guy that you can, a matchup corner who is very good at very specific assignments, right? Like, if you're obviously we kind of point back to the New Orleans Saints game where he went in there and was basically tasked with shutting down running back and making sure that he didn't break loose for a big game. But there's other stuff. He's an incredible blitzer. He does a lot of things very, very well. He can kind of go in there for very specific assignments. So I think there are packages in which you specifically have him in the game as the nickel, because you're trying to exploit his skill set. But I mean, he's not like coming in as a healthy player and taking Jourdan Bland's spot.
He's not playing 45 snaps.
And this is why I'm upset about this, honestly, is because, I mean, this was always the case, right? Like, it's not, I like Jourdan Lewis a lot. I like having him on the team. I like having that depth, but the plan, as far as I was concerned, was never to have Jourdan Lewis come in and compete with Jourdan Bland? Absolutely not.
No.
Jourdan Bland is the better of the 2 players. And so I think you bring Lewis in with the idea of having a specific way of deploying him to kind of leverage his skill set, not so much like, oh, how do we rotate him in with Bland? No, he becomes one of those Mukwamu type players where you want to get him on the field and find snaps for him, but you're not specifically benching Bland for long periods of time. You're finding packages and game script situations in which his skill set would be useful, maybe more useful than the other guy at that moment.
I don't know. I just don't know what the plan is here. And it sounds like from some of the reports that we got last week, I think it was Todd Archer that said he only practiced with the scout team last week, and they still feel like he needs, maybe another week or 2 of practice, which again calls into question, why do you have him on PUP? Maybe it's for this reason, because instead of having him on PUP, having him on the active rosters, because he just needed this much practice time to kind of get up and get ready for for week 3 or week 4 or whenever you're going to need him. But
I think that's the operative word you just said, is need him. Do the Cowboys need him right now? The Cowboys might need him in October or November, right?
I'll make the statement. They're going to need him at some point. It's just, when is that time?
But exactly. It's the win, right? I think they're going to need him in November and December. So I would rather him have taken the extra time to get healthy so that if inevitably somebody gets hurt in the defensive backfield, that's when you would need him to submit. That's why this whole situation to me, unless you're right, unless they're trying to like dangle him for a trade potential situation, this whole situation, the way they've handled it, doesn't make a ton of sense.
Which I'm not going to rule that out, because you've got your top 3 corners. You've got Noah Igbenogany, who was active, made a play on special teams last week. You still have Nashawn Wright on the PUP, who's going to be coming back after week 4. There's just not enough spots on the roster for that many cornerbacks, especially when you have 75 safeties that are all playing at one time on your defense. If you can get them on the field, have them play 100 snaps before the trade deadline, and maybe you ship them out for, I don't know, a conditional 5th round pick, whatever, to a team that needs corners. I could see that to help you kind of replace what you lost in Brandon Cooks, Stephon Gilmore, Jonathan Hankins. I would not be surprised if that's the case. Let's get to another question. This one really quickly from Ryan. He wants to know, how concerning is the tight end position, the play after week 1?
I don't think it's concerning yet. I mean, to me, that's was the exception to the rule of what we've seen from Ferguson specifically. We've talked several times about how one of the best features about Ferguson is his ability to convert those targets. He was a high percent. I'm pretty sure that he had no drops last season.
No, I don't think he had a drop last year.
I think he converted almost all his targets. So it was a rainy night. The ball was like a Nerf football you've taken into the pool, right? Like where it's like heavy and
still waterlogged.
So I'm noting it. I'm certainly keeping it in, but I think for me, we have to see. I need to see more evidence that that's the norm as opposed to a bad night on a.
And I'm not worried really about Ferguson, because he's shown the ability to be a really good hands catcher, whether it was in Wisconsin or in the NFL. He also graded as the 2nd best run blocking tight end in week 1, according to Pro Football Focus. I thought he was great there. I will say Peyton Hendershot's the one that makes me a little bit more nervous, because he flat out dropped a touchdown, and he's just not the same blocker that Ferguson is. So if that continues, I'm a little nervous, but not to the point of like, they've got to go out there and trade for X player right now because it's so bad.
That's totally fair. I think Hendershot at points during training camp has shown you a little bit of inconsistency in a way that that makes you a little bit worried. So his drop there was a little more concerning. Ferguson has been nothing but reliable this entire time he's been a Cowboy.
And he's been such a better blocker. So I can tolerate a drop or two from a guy that is blocking his tail off in the run game.
Yeah. And I imagine that was the exception to the rule, not the norm, just because I've watched it in practice and multiple games and in college. He's the normal Ferguson is a reliable hands catcher, so it's not something I'm worried about right now.
Yeah, I mean, if it continues, then we're gonna have some fun discussions about whether the Cowboys can go out and save Kyle Pitts.
From the
Falcons. But I'm sure we'll get there regardless. So
probably.
Let's get to some more questions, including some free agent options for the Cowboys next. This episode is brought to you by Jase. Everyone should be empowered to take care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use, and it gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure that you have medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That is JASE medical.com, promo code Locked On. Also wanted to let you know about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks and nerds, all you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. I have so much fun doing this. You can win up to 25 times your money during football season. Again, all you have to do is select 2 or more players, pick more or less than on their projected stats, and place your entry. My favorite part is they have so many different players and stats that you can pick on. It's incredible. Go check it out. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Go give it a try during the Thursday night game between the Vikings and the Eagles. I promise you, you're absolutely going to love it. All right, we are back here answering your Twitter questions. Lynn, this is another really good one that we've had. Peter wants to know, now that week 1 is in the books, you guys always talk about signing veterans after week 1. Are there any players out there that you would be interested in signing a non-guaranteed contract to, or which positions do you think the Cowboys could be interested in here?
You know, now that we're on the other side of things, I think it's probably still offensive line, I guess, but honestly, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I feel better-ish about it than I did, just at least because we've seen Chuma Edoga out there. And
I would have loved to bring back Jason Peters, but he's signing with Seattle because he thinks he's going to be able to play right away. That's one that I wish the Cowboys could have bought back, but I understand why they didn't.
Is Jason Peters at left tackle with Tyler Smith at left guard better than Tyler Smith at left tackle and Chuma Edoga at left guard?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying too. And you have Chuma Edoga already on your team. Yeah. So
I also just like Jason Peters a lot from what he did last year to help some of the young guys, and his ability to play left tackle, right tackle, and like we saw last year, some left guard as well.
I think the other thing that I'm erring towards more nowadays than I have been, previously, as I think because the game's changed, because the NFL has changed. I think there's something to rolling with the young guys that you've got.
Yeah.
Like you have a vet in Edoga, right? You've got Asim Richards and TJ Bass, who both got into the game on Sunday and both played fine. TJ Bass actually graded out incredibly well on limited snaps. But I mean, the point is that the only way those guys ever get better is by playing. And so there is something, look, there's constantly going to be that fear of, and the balance of, I'm afraid that the offensive line, if we put in a rookie, is going to disrupt and destroy your team. And we've got to develop these young guys so that we have backups so that they don't disrupt and destroy our team. And that balance is very difficult to find. But I tend to think that, to me, the idea of going out and getting a veteran offensive line is if your backup situation was absolute disaster and it was untenable and it was going to get you lost in games. I don't know that that's the case currently. I think it might be okay enough that I'd be willing to roll with what we've got until proven otherwise.
Yeah. I'll say 2 spots for me. And again, I don't know the players out there that would help you, but I still wish they could upgrade that Neville Gallimore spot a little bit.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm not thrilled with Neville Gallimore. I know he was better in the preseason, but the names out there aren't great unless you want to try to go after a Ndamukong Suh who played okay last year for Philadelphia, or a Linval Joseph. That's just the one spot that I could see the Cowboys trying to upgrade. And the other one that just makes me a little bit nervous is linebacker, but you don't really have a need right now. But we know with Leighton Vander Esch's injury history that you could have one at any moment. So I just keep thinking about if Vander Esch goes down and it's Damone Clark, Devin Harper, and Marquise Bell, I don't feel great about that position, but I don't know if you can convince somebody like Deion Jones to come in and sign a contract if he's going to be inactive for the first however many games of the season.
Well, I mean, I think that linebacker could be one of those positions where your backup is on the couch. I mean, there are so many capable linebackers, that are available. Like, you're not going to get a top end linebacker on the free agent market.
No, they're just
but you're also not going to, struggle to find anything less than below average. I mean, the floor is pretty high on street available linebackers right now,
especially on this team when they have so many safeties that can do some linebacker stuff. They don't use linebackers very often, but it is the one spot where if Van Der Esch, again, knock on wood, goes down, I don't feel great about the other pure linebackers on the team. But you're right. I think if they need to go out and get somebody, I'm sure that they could.
Yeah, and again, like apparently they can just create a player linebacker out of safeties whenever they want, which is incredibly impressive as well.
I'll run through a couple other positions right now. I think from the running back spot, I think you've got to feel at least good where you're at right now.
I do. I think with Dowdle, we wanted to see it in the game, but we saw a little bit that they are using these guys the way that we thought they would. I love that combination. Let's ride it out a little bit more and see how it goes.
I mean, tight end, but I don't know if there's really any viable tight ends out there. Like, is OJ Howard a big enough upgrade over Peyton Hendershot to even do that? OJ Howard's not going to give you anything on special teams where at least Peyton Hendershot can. Again, I don't see a clear upgrade in free agency as of right now. Again, if Jake Ferguson were to get hurt or Luke Schoonmaker would get hurt, maybe that's when you go out and get somebody. But right now, I think you're okay.
I'm keeping an eye on the Hendershot thing, but I'm not worried about Hendershot.
No.
I still believe in Hendershot, and I think, that'll get sorted. I'm just not even concerned about Ferguson. I think that's more the question.
I'm not concerned about
it's not time to go out and get a tight end. Yeah, because you've got that guy on your practice squad anyways, frankly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can pull up Sean McEwen anytime that you want to have a C- at tight end. Like this, they just have that guy already in the system that knows how to play every single spot. They'll be fine. Any interest in grabbing like a 79th safety for this team?
No, I don't know where you'd fit him. What is he doing?
Like tackle or something?
Yeah, what are you going to play him at running back? Don't worry, we lost 2 running backs, but we've still got 7 more safeties that we can fill in there.
I was doing a piece for the 33rd team today on like some of the top free agents, and there's like 5 safeties, and I'm like, oh, this is a good player. This is a good player that I'm not sure would even make the Cowboys practice squad because that's how loaded they are at that position. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. Again, everydayers, we'll be back tomorrow with a crossover show with Locked On Jets. Make sure you tune in for that. They are always so much fun. I can't wait to see some sad Jets fans. It's going to be great. Go follow our show on Twitter, Locked On Cowboys. Go check us out on YouTube. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosier. We'll see you guys next time.